So now that it's November, the weather's starting to get a little bit colder. We need to start focusing on getting our bees ready for winter. That process really isn't that difficult for us. We try to stay pretty hands-off with our bees. So basically what we're going to be doing is we have vented bottom boards on our hives for the summer to help them kind of regulate temperature. During the winter, those bottom boards need to be covered up. So there's a little plastic piece that we slide underneath that. Whenever we harvested our honey in early September, we noticed that our bee populations were still very, very large. We took a lot of honey supers off to try to condense those hives down. However, for some of those bees, we needed to leave some additional honey supers on there just to ensure they had enough space. So right now, we are going to be removing those honey supers, condensing the hive down, and that's going to help them kind of keep their temperature regulated longer throughout the winter. So here I'm pulling out the center frames. Usually bees like to start from the center and work their way out to the edges of the comb. Here we can see there that the bees from September until now did not produce any honey at all, which is kind of what we expected. Again, we had the additional honey super on top of there really just for space. It looks like the bees have reduced their numbers quite substantially, so they are ready to have this honey super removed. Honeybees are really interesting. During the winter months, the queen will stop laying eggs. When she stops laying eggs, a lot of the other bees will start to die. And what will remain is only just a few workers inside of the colony. During the winter, the worker bees will essentially use honey as fuel, and they will begin eating that honey and beating their wings as fast as they can. By doing that, they maintain the temperature inside the hive in the 90s all year round. They do this almost exclusively in order to ensure that the queen stays alive, as they really have no concern for keeping brood warm because the queen isn't laying eggs during the winter. And again, with this hive, we have no need for a honey super as their numbers have reduced, and they also did not produce any honey as we expected. About 2 years ago, this being our third year to actually own bees, we did a little bit of research looking into different strains of bees, and we decided we wanted to try out the Russian strain of bees. We got 4 hives, and over the course of 2 years, we lost 2 of those. And then at the beginning of this year, we actually only started with 2. We did purchase 3 more hives. I believe they were an Italian strain, and it was actually these, let's see, this hive here, here, and then the one just over there out of sight. These hives didn't really do great all throughout the rest of the year. We ended up catching a few more hives. Additionally, we also were able to split our 2 Russian hives this year, and at the end of the year, we ended up with 11 total hives. So our trapping did really, really well. If you are all interested in a video on us doing the trapping, just let us know, and make sure to put that in the comments. We'll be sure to post something about that this coming spring. But it seems as though one of those hives that we did purchase, all the rest of the hives doing well, that one, some reason, did not do well. I'm getting down into the very bottom brood chamber right here. There are no bees in the box, and so it'll be interesting to see what happened with that hive. If I saw that the bees had starved, I would expect to see a tight packed ball of bees kind of huddled around a central mass. I'm not really seeing any bees in the box whatsoever. I'm thinking maybe they end up literally just left, which is kind of interesting, but take a look at it with me. So I'm just going to put a little bit of smoke in here. This time of the year, the bees, being that they are trying to protect their honey, are really quite aggressive, especially since we have Russian strains in some of our hives. Looking through here, there's a little bit of bee bread here. It looks like this was at once a brood cluster, just because it is a darker comb. And then again, that same pattern there. But no brood there. It looks like there is some webbing in here, which is likely wax moth larvae. But they really didn't chew out the comb like I would expect to see should the bees have just died and left all their brood there. And again, a lot of bee bread. A few bees on this comb here. These are just bees from other hives. And again, nothing at all. So this hive is completely clean. Don't really know what happened with the bees. Again, if they would have starved for some reason, I would expect to see, well, a bunch of dead bees in the box. However, there really is nothing here. It appears as though they just kind of left. Not really sure why they did that. They really had ample space. But it's actually not necessarily a bad thing that they left, and I'll explain that here in just a moment. You might ask yourself why it was that I really wasn't too upset with the fact that we had one of our hives disappear. And the reason for that is brood comb. So brood comb here, this dark comb, as opposed to fresh comb or honeycomb that they actually store honey in, which is very light in color. This dark comb is indication that brood was once here. This comb has a certain smell or pheromone that the bees really like. Especially whenever I'm setting up for bee traps in the spring. Brood comb is one of those key ingredients that I use. And so with this last year, we set out so many traps and we actually caught so many bees that we really ran out completely of brood comb. We were kind of hoping, I suppose, that we would actually lose a weak colony through the winter so that we could actually have a new stock of brood comb. The nice thing is with these 2 brood boxes here, being that we have 8 frame boxes, we now have 16 frames of brood comb. These trap hives hold 5 frames, and so we put 2 frames in each one. And so that should give us 8 new traps for this spring to catch 8 more swarms of bees. So that'll be pretty exciting. Now, one of our main focuses for today will be to get all of this material here moved right over to this area over here. The reason for that is we need to get the backhoe over into this tree line way back here. The reason for that is we have got to build a retaining wall. We've got to build a retaining wall because we are putting our equipment cover right here, as you can see. That retaining wall has to go up in order to level out all of this ground. We live in a pretty hilly area, and that is just a battle that we are constantly going to be facing. But the good news is that every time we get the backhoe out, somebody gets really, really excited. Okay. Girl. You ready to work today? You ready to work today? Huh? Yeah. Just kidding. The sad thing is though, we actually used to have to do it that way. This is a massive, massive life upgrade. Nah, man. So let me tell you all a story. When we first bought this place, essentially we were faced with the fortunate opportunity to turn what was almost nothing into something. So what I mean by that is that the land was very underdeveloped. There was a small house on the property, about 1,000 square foot, a small brick house, that we were able to turn into essentially what is our one-bedroom apartment, if you will. Now, the nice thing about that is that we're actually able to live on the property that we're trying to develop while we are developing it. And that way, we don't really have to be subject to a time restraint that is placed on us by a bank while we're trying to build our home. Now, before that, we lived in the city. We sold everything that we had there and moved out here just because we decided that moving out into a rural area was a little more our style, a little more slow-paced, and there's quite a bit more freedom that comes with that. You no longer have to worry about being loud at night, waking up your neighbors while you're working on something in the garage. You're then afforded the peace that comes with living out here in the middle of nowhere. There's no cars, there's no traffic. Really the only noise you have to deal with is the occasional pack of coyotes that like to howl throughout the night. Now, being that we lived in the city before we moved here, our family had really never owned any sort of equipment, whether it be tractors or construction or anything like that, outside of just simple mechanics tools. That makes things a little bit difficult. Obviously, if our family in this area had a lot of farm equipment, then obviously we could kind of jumpstart our little farm here, borrowing their equipment. However, that was never really an option for us. So everything really had to start from scratch. The nice thing with that is that you get to do things the way you want them, but the bad thing about that is that because of budgetary constraints, things move very slow. We were blessed with the opportunity to purchase my wife's grandfather's tractor that he bought brand new in 1984. Now, of course, he had that tractor for a lot of time that he had his farm, and as some old farmers do, every time something gets broken, they rig it just to get it to work for them in that day. What that means is that you end up with a tractor that has a whole lot of things that need to be redone. So we ended up doing our best to rebuild that tractor. Now, when we knew that we were going to be getting that tractor, we wanted to make sure that we were able to take care of it, keeping it out of the rain, out of the sun, things like that. Our intent was to always build this large equipment barn for storing all of our equipment and making sure that we could take care of it. However, we weren't quite there yet to be able to build the thing that we needed to build. And so what we did was we bought a steel carport, a large one, and what we had to do with that is we had to level the ground over right next to the garage opening, and we had to do all of that by hand. That took us days. A small amount of gravel that we were able to move into that area, wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow, took us a while. Out of all the time that we spent moving wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow of gravel into the area to level just the areas where the carport would sit, we got the tractor and we covered about 10 times that amount of area in just a few scoops of gravel. It's really incredible that every time you get a new piece of equipment, the curve of your abilities to get things done is not a linear curve. We found that it's actually an exponential curve. Shortly after getting the tractor, we thought we were really high rollers. And then we quickly realized that we needed the backhoe. We were again blessed with the opportunity to purchase this backhoe, and we found once again the amount of capability that we thought we had with the tractor was nothing in comparison to what we have with this backhoe now. All right, everybody, that's really about the end of what we're going to be moving today. We've got the majority of everything that we wanted done. We got all this material kind of moved right over here to this side. The sun's kind of starting to go down over the hills, so it's going to be getting kind of dark soon. And really, this is really about some of my favorite light around here, just seeing the light kind of coming right across the top of the hill there. Regarding my leveling abilities, all of you professional equipment operators are going to have to give me a little bit of a leeway here. Make sure you leave some comments down and giving me some tips about how I can do this better. Obviously, I'm quite the novice about a lot of this stuff. I'm learning as I'm going, so give me a little bit of leeway.